Hey, welcome to Live Dream Interpretation Fridays. So excited that you're here with us. This is something that we try to do every single week as much as is possible when I'm not traveling or previously engaged with other activities. There is so much going on in the world of spiritual intelligence, the Spiritual Intelligence Mentorship Group, and the Spiritual Intelligence Mentorship and the Spiritual Intelligence Group. So, before we get started, why don't we just approach the Lord in prayer? Father God, we just thank you for this time. We thank you, God, that you are the giver of dreams. You, God, are the giver of dreams, and you are the provider of interpretations. We know, as Joseph said, as Daniel said, that all interpretations, God, they come from you. And so we want to sit at your feet. We want to still our hearts and our minds. We want to hear from you. God, help us to shut our brain off and shut off, Lord, any other distractions from hearing your word in the word of knowledge way very, very clearly. God, that we would hear from you, that you would give us wisdom, that you would give us discernment, knowledge, understanding, Father, the word of wisdom, the word of knowledge, dreams, visions, prophecy, that all of those gifts and all of the gifts of the Holy Spirit as well would be present with us today. We thank you for this time. We dedicate this time to you. You said, commit your works to the Lord and your plans will be established. You said, ask for, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask. And so, Father, we ask for wisdom in every area of our life today, that you would be with us, that you would show us what to do. And we thank you, Father, for all that you're doing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Somebody send sound. Can you guys hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay. Mariah said she can hear me. So let's start with her.
Oh,
hey.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Sounds great.
That was cool. Okay, so I have a couple dreams that I don't know if they're related, but I've had them recently, and they have to do with African Americans. And so I was wondering if I could tell them both and see what they mean. Okay?
Sure. Are they short?
Somewhat. Yeah,
Well,
they're
let me
not too
say
long.
this. I have a, just for everybody, I should have given this announcement at the beginning. I have a hard stop in 2 hours. So I like to try to get to everybody that I can. But in 2 hours, I have an appointment. I have to go. So I'm going to try to get through everything we can in 2 hours. So
Okay,
Mariah, you think your dreams are related, or you think
God is just highlighting like Black people or African American people. So I'm just really like I just feel a stirring in my spirit when it comes to those two things, and those two dreams. I feel like maybe they're related, but the themes are similar but different. One of them has to do with COVID, and one of them has to do with college.
which one's shorter?
COVID, the COVID one. Should we start with that one?
I was going to say let's do the college one, but
I can start with the college one, and then
yeah, let's try the college. How long is long? I mean, we're looking for like 3 sentences.
Not very long. It's not very long.
Okay.
So I was just tell you the gist of it. I won't go into like all the little details, but so I was in a college. It was like an older looking traditional style college, and there was me and me and three girls, and we were in class together, and we were assigned to design or create something out of an orange, like a bright orange pancake. And I just remember the orange really stood out. It was beautiful, beautiful orange. Everything else, like the color, didn't stand out at all. So we were supposed to design something on this pancake and then present it to the class. So to make a long story short, I didn't end up presenting it that day. I ended up getting a chance to do it like the following day because they didn't have enough pancakes to pass out to everyone that day. So me and these girls, we went to the store. We picked up a few items. There were 3 items in my bag. There was some items to design my pancake. there were plastic cups with lids and cheese. So the cheese was for me to snack on while I was designing my pancake. So anyway, so we're all in the classroom and we're working on our projects. And then all of a sudden, there's just a group of Black gentlemen come walking down the stairs. And I noticed they all had what looked like kind of like Hawaiian button-up button-up collared shirts on. But they weren't Hawaiian. They were just different patterns. And I really wanted to like give them a shout out and encourage them. So I made sure to say really loudly as they were all coming down the stairs and walking by, I made sure to say, "Hey, I really like your shirts." And so they were all like, "Yeah, yeah." And so they started like giving me knuckles as they walked by me. That's pretty much it for that dream.
Okay, interesting. So it sounds like the bulk of what you were doing was a college project where you were making a design out of pancakes.
Yep, orange. And orange was very, it was very prominent in that dream, was the orange. Okay. And then the black guys.
Okay. They seem kind of like not the main focus of the dream, but kind of like an afterthought almost, just kind of a side thing. It seemed like, at least the way that you described it, the vast majority of what you were describing was this college experience where you're making orange pancakes. Now, did you recognize anybody in the dream at all?
Nope. I just know that like I was with 3 girls and we were like a crew. We did everything together. We went to the store together. We were in school together. And we weren't making the pancakes. The pancakes, like the teachers passed out this beautiful round flat pancake to all of us. And we just had to design it and we had to present it to the class. And I also forgot to mention that I know that I wanted to do something. I wanted to design it with a message that was encouraging to the students. And it had like, I felt like it had to do with encouraging everyone to love one another just because of all the stuff that is going on in the world today and all the, just with everything. I wanted it to be a message of loving one another.
Okay. So you weren't back in college like you recognized the college that you went to were people from that time frame. It was like you were in college and none of it was related to the past.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So what I feel like college represents a place of higher learning. So like the meat of the word is how the Bible would say it. It's beyond base level. It's graduate level. And so you were in a place of graduate level learning and you had this project where you were working together with 3 other people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you had a posse of us 4. 4 is interesting because a lot of times 4 represents, and I believe it does in this case, 4 represents the 4 corners of the world. So it has to do with a global theme. It has to do with a theme of inclusion. The idea of an orange pancake is really interesting because I feel like it's designing a project that you want to encourage people. The orange reference, and somebody got it, is which kind of came to mind as well, is the idea of orange man bad, right? That's what they would say when Trump was in office because of the way that he would do his or whatever he did.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that is a situation that's happened recently in our country that literally has kind of been laid flat. It's kind of left people flat, kind of like, man, what the heck? What are we going to do now? And of course, the situation that we're in, I think the vast majority of people are looking around and saying, this is not the country we had 6 months ago. The economy is worse. The restrictions are off the charts. The government is trying to pull every single thing they can in a massive power grab. They're trying to pass a $3.5 trillion budget. I mean, it's just absolute. It's like all limits are off and they are just absolutely crazy with what's happening. Yeah. And so the idea is what you want to do is you want to take something that kind of was orange and landed flat and create it into something that encourages people. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's describing the time frame that we're living in. Now you were carrying 3 things: cups with lids. What else?
Yeah, so they were plastic cups with lids, and someone I was with actually said to me, "Oh, you can use that for cash." My youngest, who just walked by, they were like, "You can." I think they suggested I give him his medicine in that cup. I don't know. And then I don't remember exactly what the other items are. I just remember they were like supplies, like a kit of supplies for the project, and then the other one was cheese.
Cheese, that's what it was. Okay. Yeah, the cups with lids is the idea of trying to contain, um, particularly something that would spill all over the place, like a drink. You're trying to contain it, you're trying to put a lid on it, you're trying to minimize and contain a level of the catastrophe or whatever that's happening. So I feel like, again, it's the idea of, man, I wish we could put, I know there's a lot of people that feel, I wish we could put a lid on this time period in our life in American history and move on to back where the way things were, back where people weren't fighting about masks or jabs or this or that, and everybody's job and livelihood and
Yeah.
freedom is being threatened daily. And, the media is just absolutely lying to
Yeah.
everybody about everything all the time in every way with everyone. Um, and so it's the idea of wanting to contain and wanting to encourage. Um, the idea of cheese, I think, is really interesting because what it reminds me of, what I hear, is in Scrooge, where he wakes up, and I think it's when he wakes up from the first Ghost of Christmas Past. He wonders if he had a tasty bit of cheese last night that perhaps was what gave him the dream. And so the cheese is kind of the idea of disregarding what God is saying in dreams and blaming it on something that literally you feed yourself. It also represents milk, which is a base level, but it's a solidified version of the base level. So it feels like it's grown up food, but it's really not. It's still milk, even though it's something
Okay.
you have to chew and you're thinking it's not a steak, it's not meat. So it's something to snack on, is the idea that let's ignore what heaven is saying, let's ignore what God is saying, and let's snack on the idea, which is a base level idea, that things like, oh, everything is going to be okay and we'll be back to normal and we'll be, all of these interesting platitudes that everybody from normal people to pastors and leaders say, that the vast majority of us realize at this point means absolutely nothing.
Right.
What's also interesting is you had this group of gentlemen that came in that obviously didn't look like you. They were of a different ethnicity, and you felt the need to also encourage them. So this is the idea, once again, of inclusion with, the idea of the four corners of the earth, of the three people, the three-strand cord, three other people that you're working with, of coming together in unity, of trying to encourage people with the flat situation and put a lid on containment of what's happening. And so I believe part of this dream, I believe this dream is really a dream about kind of showing you who you are. It's also showing who you are in the season that we're in. And who you are is you're an encourager. You want to fix things. You want to create something with this pancake project that then is going to be good, graded well, pleasing, encouraging. And then even the people that are walking by, you want to be able to encourage them. You want to be able to put a lid on, put containment on. It's just the idea that I feel like you have a exhortation gift. It's like a prophetic gift, but it's a gift of encouragement and exhortation, that you're a positive force. You want to continue to encourage people and let them know that things are going to be okay. And especially in a time that's troubling, you see this as an opportunity to be able to reach out and to encourage people of any race, of any creed, color, religion, whatever. I feel like you got a really big heart, and God is kind of highlighting that to you.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely how I feel. So that makes sense. So.
Okay.
Are you still? Okay.
Let me move on to a couple other people.
Went blank for a second.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, let me move on to a couple other people.
Yeah,
if you want to stay in the back, and if we get through everybody else and we get a chance to get to you again, we can. But I want to get through as many people as possible. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Mariah. Okay. Appreciate it. All right. Well, let's go with Lisa.
Hello. I'm going back to my closet because I want to talk fast because I know you've got people to come on, but this is a dream. It's got Chuck Pierce in it, and I have to tell you, it's sexually explicit.
Okay.
I know the Lord wants me to bring this forward and get the interpretation. Okay. So
Yeah,
I'm
we
warning
don't
everybody.
typically have kids on here. If you have kids, plug their ears, have them step away for a minute. But we're not advertised as a kid show, so it's okay.
No. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to read it. I had it a few nights ago. I dreamed I was intimate with Chuck Pierce. I was in an old house that I used to live in. I was performing something on him, and he was telling me how to do it. He wasn't able to finish because we ran out of time. And then his penis grew really long, and I offered regular sex, but we had to go because we were late. When we were in the car, my mentor was with us, and I was so embarrassed because she knew what we had done, but we never said anything. And then the dream switched to, I don't know if you ever watched Criminal Minds, but Agent Hotchner, he was the head of the FBI behavioral unit. He and his wife were there, and we were trying to inseminate her with his semen with a funky looking syringe that was actually an odd shaped container.
Okay. This is really interesting. People are typically afraid, I just want to mention this, to share sexually explicit dreams because they feel like they're not that they're literal, but that they imply something related to the imagery. I can assure you that if this applies nothing related to the imagery at all. This is about the jab.
The jab.
The jab. So it's literally the idea of having sex or being intimate is the idea of coming into agreement with, Chuck Pierce, as in pierced, as in a hole put in, and somebody else had that in a dream. And it was funny because as soon as you said Chuck Pierce, I remembered that, like the Lord brought it to mind. It was an interpretation in another dream that somebody else had that they shared with me that they couldn't figure out what the heck Chuck Pierce meant. And for them, it was pierced for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities, which again, the whole idea of healing, the whole idea of inoculation, the whole idea of the blood of Jesus, all of those things are put in there. And so if, depending on, I'm going to try to be a little general, depending on what part of you was coming into agreement with that, if it has to do with your voice, if it has to do with your hands, if it has to do with your mind. Okay. So it's coming into agreement with that, which is what the sexual act represents. But when it came to actual regular sex or physical intercourse, right, then that wasn't occurring. Didn't have time for that. Right. And then his organ became very, very long and big, which to me represents the overreach of government. Like every single thing that's happening right now is literally like they have a big stick and they can do whatever the heck they want. And in particular related to who they want to inject or pierce or penetrate or whatever. That's very, very graphic imagery for what is happening in America today. Mm-hmm. So that's the first part. Now, the second part, what was the second part again? You were with your mentor, the Criminal Minds guy.
Well, we got in the car. We had to leave. We had no more time. Right. We got in the car and my mentor was in the car. Right.
And so you had to move on. You were going to inseminate his wife with this big, huge syringe-looking thing.
It was just an odd shape. It wasn't huge. It was just like an hourglass shape.
Like an hourglass shape. That's interesting.
Weird thing.
So that represents times, like times and seasons, right? And the idea of insemination and the idea of any type of syringe looks akin, again, to the instrument used to perform a jab on someone. So, yeah, it's interesting. As Vanessa says, and Newsom just passed mandates on our kids, public and private schools. We need prayer. So this is the whole idea of inseminating the next generation, right? It's the idea of the next generation. It's about children. It's about, a forcible implantation of children into the womb of somebody else, which represents a whole series of things. It represents government overreach in that they want to take our kids and plant them in the womb of the government, And they want to be the caretakers, and they want to tell us, and they want to dictate to us, and they want to allow kids as young as, I don't know what it is now, 5, 10, 11 years old to be able to have abortions, to be able to have sex changes without parental consent. All of this is just, if people haven't figured it out, it's the state wants to control your children soup to nuts. So if they can come in and tell them that what they can do with their sex lives and their sexual organs before they even understand what sex is, they can do everything else. Certainly they can train them and teach them and take them away from you at any time that they think that you don't want to comply with the jab or the mask or the mandate or whatever the latest crazy nut job thing the government's trying to do. It's interesting that you got into the car between these situations, because you got in a car. And what state do you live in, by the way? Texas. All right. Go Texas. Yeah. So you're in the free state of Texas, as I like to call it. I live in Texas too. I like to call it.
Got a rhino governor, but it's free enough.
It's free enough. Yeah. So the idea of getting into a car, who was driving?
Maybe Chuck.
Okay.
I don't know.
You're not sure. Okay. Well, then it's a detail that doesn't matter. It's the idea of getting in the car means moving forward in a destiny-like manner. A car can represent, and I believe in this case it represents a vehicle to destiny, but it represents a vehicle that a group of people are in, which represents Chuck, which also represents your mentor. And so I see there's a dichotomy between Chuck and your mentor. Chuck doesn't represent Chuck. Chuck is not a symbol in this particular case of, a father in the prophetic. It's a symbol of the idea of being pierced. So to me, Chuck represents government overreach. Not that I would ever see Chuck Pierce in a dream as representing that, but in this case, it's a weird dream. That's what I believe he represents. And so the idea that he would be driving would also make sense. If he's not driving, it doesn't matter. It's the idea that you're moving along and there's a mentor, which I believe would be a spiritual person in your life saying, hey, I know what you're doing. I know that you came into agreement with this, and this is out of order. This is not right. This is wrong. This is nefarious. This is of a bad agenda and a bad spirit. We don't condone or want to have anything to do with what you're doing here. Now, it's interesting that when I asked you what part of you came into agreement with him when you were doing whatever you were doing, you said my mind. And so really it's the idea of the battlefield of the mind, the idea of fear, the idea of giving into the persuasion that politicians are using, the media is using. They initially tried to encourage, and then they tried to bribe, and then they try to cajole, and then they try to mandate, and now they're threatening, and they want to take people's jobs away. And so, as we know, it's never, ever, 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 ever been about a pandemic. Not even close. It's been about control and government overreach and, frankly, oppression and the robbing Americans of their freedom. So if you don't know that, I don't know that I'm sorry to be the one to tell you. There's tons of research that you can do, but most of the research that I do is all related to what comes to me in dreams. What comes to me or comes through other people like Lisa. And so I've turned off the news, both sides of the table. I've turned off the regular news, the alternative news, the podcasters who say a bunch of stuff that nobody can verify or ever back up. And I say, what is the sound of heaven? I want to hear from God. I want my trusted source in this dark time is what is heaven saying. And so that's what I want to know, right? And so I believe that's what this is talking about. This is talking about overreach that's growing. It's talking about being driven somewhere. It's talking about the idea of inseminating, which is insinuating what is happening with us now onto the next generation. And it's the idea of how if we continue to come into agreement, stay in the car with, be in covenant or community with this idea at all, it's going to affect the next generations of Americans. The freedoms that they take from us now are the freedoms our kids never knew they had. And so, I think it's a real clear message. Obviously, I don't know what side of the whole debate you fall on, but
I am not taking that shot. He's already told me it's not from him. That's not even a question.
Yeah. So I think it's good to know that and to have that solidified in your mind. You clearly have made the stance based on your own words just now to not come into agreement at all. So the question then becomes, why did God give you the dream? Is the dream a warning to those that may be listening, to other people? Does the dream represent maybe somebody else that was in the car? Or is there somebody else that may need to be warned? Or was it just a dream that's more general? Though this is probably not a dream that's going to end up on Elijah's list. It's it's one of those dreams that it was very figurative and very extremely graphic to make a point, which means to me it's a very strongly worded message. So I think the actionable intelligence for you is to ensure that you and your household isn't coming into agreement with any of this at all, which it sounds like that's already been covered. But also to ask God, what part do I play in this? Do I need to make other people aware? Do I need to have a conversation with my mentor? Are there other people that are affected? And even beyond that, what else do I need to do? Like, there's a lot of people that feel like they're fighting for the country, but they're posting things on Facebook or Twitter, or, they're going on YouTube or Rumble, and that's their fight. And that's interesting, but it's like a public service announcement. It's not really fighting. There is a level of what needs to happen in America to wake people up. And then there's another level that's a George Washington level. That George Washington, I'm so tired of hearing people say, just pray. We don't need to just pray. God is giving us action dreams that we need to break agreement somehow. You need to turn the car over and not be in the car with these kind of people, not come into agreement, not rob the next generation of their choice of whatever it is that they would have, because they're born with this stuff implanted in them already. And so I think you need to ask God, where do I need to take this fight to?
Yeah, that night, or it was that night, I think, that he had me go to the Keller ISD meeting.
Oh, wow.
And he told me he was going to show me what he wanted me to see. So it is about the next generation.
Yeah. It's funny because I was thinking school board when I was telling you that, the people standing up in the school board meetings, and, it wasn't a real clear symbol to me, but that's the picture that came into my head. And I thought, well, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but God knows.
He'll tell me. I homeschool, but I'm not, my kids aren't even in school. He had me pull them out, but yeah, he's got something for me he has something for me there.
Awesome. Well, then there's a reason, and you've been convinced in a strongly worded graphic message from Papa where you need to take the stand, and that the fight is not just for you and yours, but it's for the next generation.
Yes.
So that's good for you to know as you go into battle with whatever he's called you to do.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lisa. Wow, what a great dream. All right. Let's do Anne. You're muted. There you are. Yes. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm getting feedback. Are you hearing feedback?
I'm not. No.
Okay. So I had actually emailed you this dream. I don't know if you've ever read it or not, but I had it back in July 10th. And I'm driving down a highway going toward downtown St. Louis. This whole dream is like very dark until the end. But I can see the skyline in the distance, and then I can see the lights of 5 fighter jets flying in formation toward the city, very low, like almost going between the buildings. And then another jet flies over my car, and my first thought is, oh, that's the president. And it's followed shortly by another fighter jet. They pass over the central part of the city, then the 5 fighter jets bank off to the left and fly off while the other 2 continue west. I keep driving, and I've passed downtown, and I'm headed west toward the suburbs, and I make this big bend in the road just past the Kings Highway exit. all of a sudden I feel a presence over me, and this huge eagle is flying over my car, keeping pace with me. And after a few minutes, the eagle shifts to the left and lowers himself to flying right beside my car. His wings were fully extended with a huge wingspan. I briefly felt his right wing brush my left arm, and then he lifted up and flew away. I immediately go into like the second scene, but do you want me to continue or? Okay, so I wake up in what appears to be a dorm room with bunk beds, and I get up and I'm down and I'm looking for the bathroom. And I go down this dark hallway and I pass a classroom and I can hear people in there talking, and the words I hear are freedom and patriot. And I want to go in, but I have to find the bathroom. So searching through the hallways, I finally find it. And I go from stall to stall, and they're all overflowing and they smell really bad. And I realize I'm walking in urine. So I immediately go to leave the bathroom. I turn on the hand dryer that's on the wall, trying to clean myself up. And I get frustrated because I can't dry my feet. And then I walk out of the bathroom in what appears to be like a cafeteria. And this is where the lights come on, where it's bright and I can see. And it looks like the people from the lecture are in there. And I walk past the booth, and Ross Geller from Friends is sitting there. And he looks at me and it says, "Nice nightshirt." And that's when I wake up. And it's 3:03 a.m. when I wake up. You're muted.
What nightshirt did you have on? Did it have like any
I
ropes?
don't know. Probably the normal one I wear is just a plain gray nightshirt. So I don't know.
Okay. What's your normal nightshirt?
It's just a plain gray, like knee length nightshirt.
All right. Interesting. So you're on your way to St. Louis, or you're in St. Louis?
I'm driving towards St. Louis, so I'm going west, but I don't remember like crossing a bridge because St. Louis is right there on the river.
Right.
I don't remember crossing a bridge, but I can see the skyline in the distance. And then I eventually get into downtown.
Do you see the arch?
I do. I see Metropolitan Square. I see the arch.
Okay, the thing that comes to mind about St. Louis is, of course, Gateway to the West.
That one
which is
I made.
the idea of manifest destiny, right? Of the country moving westward and taming the wild, and how the West was won, and the journey to California, the gold rush, all of these parts of our history that have been very much celebrated. But with a cost to people that already live there and all of that. But it represents the whole idea of a gateway to the West where you're traveling. So as you're traveling, there's 5 planes that appear in formation, 5 fighter jets, right? And then they go off in a different direction, and then the Eagle comes, right?
Well, you've got the 5 jets, then you've got Air Force One, followed by another fighter jet.
By another one fighter jet or series of fighter jets?
One behind him.
Wow, 511. That's interesting. Okay. So typically Air Force One, as far as I know, I've never flown on Air Force One, but as far as I know, they don't have a contingent that heavy of escorts. So to me, it sounds like, the exception would be like on a 9/11. Now, I don't know how many fighter jets escorted Air Force One wherever it went on 9/11, but I would not be surprised if there was multiple fighter jets in the air just because of it was an air emergency and everything that was happening. There have been Amanda Grace had a dream about 5 fighter jets in formation. 5 or 7. And the president was in one, General Flynn was in another. We've kind of, there's been a lot of airplane dreams as of late.
Yeah, these were like modern day jets. I think hers were.
Yeah, they were old school. They were World War I or World War II. So this is the idea of fighter jets out in front of the president with one as a rear guard. So obviously that means that the battle or any area of main concern is what lies ahead. When I think of Air Force One, I think of a particular person. And it's
I did actually, even though this was July 2021, I did, when I said, oh, that's the president, 45 was who I was thinking.
Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting because that's what I thought too. And it's the idea, again, of warfare going before, leading out in front, a warlike formation. Fighter jets, the purpose of, I was in the Navy for 11 years. I was on an aircraft, the Abraham Lincoln, an aircraft carrier during the first Persian Gulf War. So I know a little bit about this type of war fighting and studied it and what it looks like. And first of all, fighter jets are designed specifically for air-to-air combat. That's the purpose of fighter jets. Now, unless it's an FA-18, an FA is a fighter attack, which means it can be both a fighter, air-to-air combat, and air-to-ground, which is a bomber. And then there's the A planes, which are the attack planes, and those are classically bombers. So it's interesting because there's a level of warfare, and I believe because it's air warfare, it represents spiritual warfare. It's the idea of 5 planes. Planes can also represent the prophetic in more of a modern sense. In a traditional sense, it's usually an eagle, right? Or a hawk or an owl or something that has the ability to fly high. But particularly eagles and falcons and things like that they're also birds of prey. They're also hunters. That's what fighter jets are. They're hunters. They find and remove the enemy from the path of whatever it is that they're guarding or protecting. A lot of times they provide interference so the attack planes can then go in and do what their duty is. And you think, if you've ever watched like Midway, World War II, the fighter planes would go in and mix in with the attack planes because the other fighters from the Japanese side were trying to shoot down our bombers, so we couldn't bomb their aircraft carriers and, et cetera, et cetera. So it's interesting that this is what you saw as you're entering into the city of the gateway to the west. So what I believe is it's the idea of a progression of spiritual warfare that mirrors the progression of the birthing of our country. Now, at the inception of our country, right, it was all East Coast. And then it slowly began to move the westward expansion. Again, the idea of manifest destiny, and then all the way across the plains, across the prairie, across the mountains to California. That was and if you look at the states when they became states, that's how it grew, as it grew across the country in a westward fashion, generally. And so what I feel like we're hearing about is the idea of a progressive war to take back, to take back the country that is entering into a phase that it's about to go to a whole different level. There's a spiritual component to it. There's a practical component to it. There's a level of leadership with it that is, I believe, portending so many other dreams of what God has said about what we feel he wants for who's going to be in office and what that's going to look like. And frankly, if the symbol has to do with 45, it's also a very strong juxtaposition between the country that we had a year ago and the country that we have today. And they're drastically different, almost unrecognizable as the same country. If you look at everything from the border to Afghanistan, to the economy, to the dramatic overreach and oppressiveness of the government and the states and the infighting and the media and all of this stuff back and forth. There's so many responsible parties that are just, it's too many to name. I'm not here to name names and cause blame anyway, but it's just the idea of a progressive war moving westward, which is the expansion. So what's going to expand? Is freedom going to expand, or is freedom going to contract? That's the choice that we have to make in this generation. It's interesting that the warfare was going on ahead, following the main thrust of the warfare, of the clearing of the air, which again is the purpose of fighter jets, right? Is the reinstitution of leadership, which is represented by Air Force One. And following that, there was a single fighter jet, which I believe is just the idea of cleanup, and it's kind of light cleanup. After leadership is restored, the vast majority, by what this dream is saying, of the warfare will be over with and completed. Now, what happens next is there's a big eagle that comes and it dips down by you and it touches you with its right wing. Is that right?
Yes, its right wing like brushes my left arm.
Okay. That's really interesting. Of course, the first thing I thought of is right wing, right? The idea of a conservative base. There's so many memes about, the left wing and the right wing are wings on the same bird. And, they're kind of an oversimplification of what's happening. I don't even talk about political parties hardly at all anymore, because at this point they're really irrelevant. There's good and there's evil, period, in this country. And there's a lot of mixture of people thinking they're good and being evil, and people who are trying to be wolves in sheep's clothing and all of that, including tons and tons and tons of this going on in the church. And so God is exposing it. He's bringing this to pass. But the idea of the large eagle represents the United States. It represents the destiny of America. It's the quintessential symbol of the United States of America. Even throughout Scripture, many times countries are represented by an animal. The eagle will always be the United States, right? And it's interesting because if you read biblical prophecy in light of that, there's people that say the United States isn't mentioned in the Bible in biblical prophecy. Well, go look for eagles and see what you find. But the idea of the right wing kind of touching you on the left side. Your left side is your shield side, right? If you're a gladiator in the arena, typically 90% of the time, your left side is your shield hand, your right side is your offensive hand. So the defensive hand is the idea of the right wing literally touching you or encouraging you to be defensive. That's what the touch is. Be defensive, take a stand. It's akin to that symbol in this dream is akin to the admonition of Ephesians 6 that says, having done everything, stand firm, therefore. And what have you done? You've put on the armor, right? The armor is on, you're in a defensive position. Now, you also put on the armor, obviously, if you're going to charge, but charging is not standing. Charging is offensive, standing is defensive. Don't lose ground. There are several movements out there, Sean Foyt and others. Hold the line is kind of like their statement. And it's interesting because it may be that you and others, their job is to hold the line. There's a group of people that their job is to advance. Their job is to take the fight to the enemy. That's what the fighter plane represents. That's what the leadership is following. That's what needs to happen. In order to take this country back, there is going to need to be a significant level of perhaps warfare, and definitely at the very least of it, spiritual warfare and information warfare. This is what's represented by warfare in the heavenlies, warfare in the airwaves, warfare in the frequencies. It's both the spiritual warfare and it's the warfare on the airwaves, meaning the satellite, the media, the everything that's being pumped into everybody's home, the disinformation, the psychological operation that's happening in America right now. That needs to be brought down, and real, actual, legitimate, duly elected leadership needs to be ushered back in. That's what that first part of the dream represents. So it's letting you know, it's kind of like the lion brushing up against you, like, Aslan, in Chronicles of Narnia. It's kind of like, hey, I got this. I'm going to go roar, but I need you to put on your armor and hold the line. So that's the first part.
I do that within my
Say
small
what?
circle. But I feel like I do that in my small circle, but I don't really have a platform. But
Well, and part of that is prayer. Prayer is a big part.
Mm.
Prayer is not the only part. Prayer is a big part. Again, I'm not frustrated with people praying. People need to pray. People need to worship. We need to have spiritual warfare movements. All of that needs to happen. But at some point, George Washington also prayed. He didn't just pray. At some point, it goes beyond prayer.
I recently got a word about the third watch, which goes right in line with that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the whole Watchman on the Wall thing, the whole Nehemiah thing, the whole idea of they're saying build back better, the whole idea of rebuilding is you build with a trowel in one hand and a sword in the other. It's the idea really of defending the work of being rebuilt. We're not there yet. We haven't torn down the stuff that needs to be torn down to be in a place to rebuild. I hope people understand what time it is. There is evil in this land that is pervasive in probably every mountain, in every sphere, in just about every organization. We see it all over the tech side, all over. The media is, I don't even know if there's anything left of the media. Politicians, governance, the same way. These are industries that I've been involved in, industries that I love dearly. I'm just saying, not a lot of redemption, redeemable qualities as we're looking in these particular areas. Now, God is at work, and there are handfuls of remnants in certain places. But if you had to look at the vast majority of what's happening, we're losing ground and losing ground quickly. So the first idea is hold the line. Don't lose any more ground. Make a stand. Don't let them take anything else away at all. Oh, that's interesting. St. Louis is the chess capital of the world. Hello.
I did not know that.
People hear the idea of Trump playing 4D chess, the idea of being strategic and all of that. And it's also interesting that when I was on the aircraft carrier, there was a squadron. I forget what it was called, but it was the something Knights, and that was the planes. They called themselves the something, the Dark Knights or whatever it was. But it's the idea of pieces are in motion, right? And so there's a level, and I feel like this dream is intel on multiple levels. One, there's a war and it's advancing. Two, there's leadership that is being in a position of being restored that comes after a major fight, which is what the 5 represents, followed by the 1. 3, there's going to be a level of cleanup after that. 4, the eagle is coming in to take its rightful place again. It represents multiple things. It represents high-level prophetic. It represents the spirit of prophecy, the foretelling spirit, the spirit of God. It represents America, particularly as it relates to America. All of these things, but it also represents, it's interesting that it takes time out of what it's doing, soaring high above the fray to see where to go and attack, to see what's coming ahead, to kind of come down and brush up against you, which is the idea of giving you orders and saying, this is your job. Man the left side. Man the shield hand. I think of, again, in the movies like 300 or Troy, where they would say shield wall, right? And everybody would come in and they'd ball up almost like a ladybug. And no matter what they did, whether they tried to attack them with spears or swords or even overhead with arrows, nothing penetrated and nothing got through. So that's the idea of creating unity and being in a defensive position. There's a lot of Americans that's going to be what their battle is. There's some Americans that their battle is actually going to be in the air to take the fight to them, and at some point there may actually be more than that. There are people already that are putting their lives and their livelihood on the line, that are going to school board meetings and running for political office and things. These are all good steps, but they're minor compared to, again, looking at George Washington or Ulysses S. Grant and what they did on behalf of the country, Abraham Lincoln, and the price that those great, great men paid so that all men and women would be free in this country. What was the next part of the dream?
The next part was waking up in the dorm and finding the bathroom.
Okay. You're going up in the dorm. You're finding it. Tell me that whole part again. I remember that, but not the details.
So I wake up and I'm in a dorm room. There's like bunk beds against the wall, and I get out and the hallways are dark, and I'm going in search of a bathroom. And I pass a classroom and I hear them talking about freedom and patriots, and I want to go in, but I can't. And I finally get to the bathroom, and everything is dirty and overflowing, and I realize I'm walking in urine, and then I try to clean myself up. But I get frustrated because I can't dry my feet, and when I walk out of the bathroom, I walk into a cafeteria where all the people from the lecture are. And that's when I see Ross, and he says, "Nice lecture."
Okay. Really interesting. So you wake up, which means the first part was a dream within a dream.
Whoa.
If you're familiar with the movie Inception, there's a level of time. The further they go, the deeper they go. What feels like a minute down here is an hour up there. So what seemed to happen fast in the first dream, which is the battle, the reinstitution of leadership, the eagle, the marching orders, all of those pieces together, they're a level down, which seems like it was happening in real time, but it's actually a little bit of a ways off. What may have happened in a minute happens in an hour and the next level up. So you're 2 levels down in the dream, which I think is fascinating. So what's happening the next level up is the school idea, which I think is really interesting, because in a lot of places, as we've seen on media and social media, some of the kind of the key lines of defense and warfare have been in school board meetings, where people are resisting, they're firing all the school boards, people are getting thrown out, police are telling people to wear masks. I mean, there's all kinds of these videos all over the internet about what's happening at school board meetings. And it's the idea of what the classroom, what the people want to learn, and what they're really crying out for is freedom. And you want to be in that place to give them freedom, but there's a whole lot of cleanup that needs to happen. This is the idea. What you see in the bathroom is the idea of draining the swamp. You know, you can go teach the kids about freedom, but if they're in this environment of disgusting filth, and that's the situation in this building, and what you're tracking in wherever you go, and there's urine on the floor, and there's just all of this mess, probably be better to clean up the mess first and then go back to teaching. So you're right, though. It's about, and this is a theme even in the last stream, is it's not just about us, it's about the next generation. It's about what God wants to do. Now, the bathroom is a place of purging and cleansing, releasing, letting go. It's a place of washing, and it's a place of self-reflection. I feel like all 3 of those apply. It's also a secret place, a place to get along with God, a place to spend time with him, kind of to be undistracted, though most people probably get on their phones these days when they go to the restroom. But it's the idea of those 3 things, and I feel like those 3 things represent what needs to happen to our country. The idea of, the human waste, the mess that man has made of what God has given us with this country, and a time of self-reflection and a time of cleaning. So not just letting go and purging, which would be draining the swamp, but now you got to go clean the place where the swamp was. And then now you need to think long and hard about how the swamp got there to begin with. And then you need to go out and join the rest of the world, which is to move on. And when you go out and when you're all cleaned up, you're going to the cafeteria, which represents several things. It represents a place for you at the table, and it represents a place where you feed people. So feeding people is, what are we going to feed the next generation? You know, we're going to set a table for them. What are they going to eat? You know, if you take them into the bathroom and they went with you on that trip, everybody's just lost their appetite. Nobody wants to eat anything, you know? So you got to clean all that up and clean yourself up before you go out to this place that you're then in a position to either break bread and be in covenant, in community with people, or you're in a place where you're able to serve and to serve up basically what the next generation is going to be chewing on. Because again, it's a school. It's a place of learning. It's also a place that represents, in this context, immaturity, because you go to school to learn and to grow. And so I think, to wrap it up, there's a lot here. God is giving you a window into what's happening, what's coming, the sort of time frame, not a real accurate time frame, but a general time frame. I would go back, and in fact, I probably will go back and watch the movie Inception, just so I can see, because that's what I remembered. And I just want to know, what was the time frame? If it was a minute here, was it an hour there, or a day there, or a week there, or whatever? Because if it's tenfold, what you saw happening in real time may take 10 times as long to happen in the real world. And so I want to know, and even the first, what happens in a dream can happen like that, but actually takes more time in the real world. And so you weren't one layer down, you were 2 layers down. So that effect is exponentially multiplied. So because God brought inception to mind, I would go back and I would see how long things take in the second level of dreams. I also believe that God is giving you a mandate, not only to stand firm, but perhaps to be involved in education in some aspect. Because your desire was to go into the classroom where they were teaching freedom. I don't think you were going in there because you wanted to learn. I think you were going in there because you agreed with what they were saying and you wanted to literally come into agreement with the education of the next generation. Your job initially, though, was to purge the past, self-reflect, and clean up. Once that happened, then you went into the place of literally serving. And since we're still in a school and they're talking about the next generation, it's the idea of serving in an educational capacity of some sense. That may not mean you need to be a teacher, may not mean you need to be a member of a school board, but I think actionable intelligence for you is stand firm, know the times and seasons we're in, know what's coming on a national level, and find your place, whatever that looks like. And it may not even be traditional school, but as it relates to serving or feeding, giving nourishing substance to the next generation.
Thank you.
Didn't think you'd get all of that out of that dream, did you?
Not what I got out of it.
I didn't think so when I started either.
I got the symbols, but I couldn't put it together. So
yeah,
it's just
awesome.
the way it is with most things.
Well, it's just practice. And again, a lot of times it doesn't. When I get started on talking, I'm like, God, I don't have any idea where this is going to go. But then he just brings it together.
That was amazing.
Thanks for sharing your dream, man. Love it. All right, Hadassah.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good, good.
I hear an echo, but it's not on my end.
I don't hear any echo here.
All right.
You don't have YouTube open, do you?
No. I've got it muted.
Okay.
Pretty sure I do, yeah. Anyways, I'm going to let you pick your dream today. Now, I have one about Israel, and I have one about Donald and Melania Trump.
Wow. Well, I love the Trump dreams just because I've gotten so many of them. So I always love to hear more of those. They can be controversial, but I'm not one necessarily to shy away from controversy. So which one's the shorter dream?
The one about Israel they're almost the same length. They're just real short.
Okay, well, go ahead then.
All right, since you like the Trump dream, now I had this dream the other day on September 25th, 2021.
Okay.
And I was at a picnic in a local park in Florida. It was a nice day, but it was a bit misty or foggy, especially off at a distance. It was a little mistier looking. Donald Trump was there in casual clothes like the rest of us, just hanging around, talking to some folks, and everything seemed like a normal gathering, like you would with family or a church picnic or something like that. We all knew who he was, but nobody bothered him. Nobody was trying to get his attention or, really try to, you know how it is. You can be mobbed by people if you're that famous. There were no Secret Service or police at the gathering because we were all safe and didn't need it. I heard a woman's beautiful voice singing close by, maybe 100 feet away, and you could see her through the mist. And it was Melania standing there looking beautiful in a simple long dress and singing in a heavenly or ethereal sounding voice like an angel, like something out of this world beautiful. And of course, we know she's a beautiful lady. There was no stage or anybody elevated above another. It was just a normal, beautiful day, and we were all having a peaceful and lovely time together. That's it.
Where was the setting? Was this at the White House?
No, it was actually, I live in Florida. I used to live in Palm Beach County, so I felt like it was in the Deer area, and they have lots of picnic tables, and then you can go over the dune and through the sea grapes and be on the beach. It felt like it was there.
Okay, so this was basically like a private party, right?
Well, not necessarily. It was just whoever wanted to show up could be there, but it felt to me like a church picnic because we had church picnics in that park.
Yeah. Okay, and you said that there was no Secret Service and no protection detail?
Not needed.
Just wasn't needed, which would be really interesting on a meeting that would be open to the public. Would be very unusual, actually, particularly with having Trump and Melania involved. There would be probably a lot of protection, especially in the environment that we're in. Yep. The mist is interesting. Somebody said they saw the dream, and he said the mist is important. I agree. A God type gathering where you'd be safe. I think it's really the mist represents a veil. It represents a time, either a time in, I hate to use these words, but almost like a parallel universe, or a time that has yet to come. It's the whole idea of 1 Corinthians 13. Now we see in a mirror dimly or through a glass darkly. The mist represents that, but it's not through a glass. The glass represents the looking glass, like Alice in Wonderland, like down the rabbit hole, but also peering into the future. I believe this is, that's interesting because it could be about the future. It could also be about a design that God has for the now. The idea of being at a church picnic is the idea of safety. The idea of safety, the idea of spirituality. To me, in particular, it reminds me of the upper room, and it represents the idea of being in unity. If you're in unity, then you know everybody there is safe, and then you don't need people with guns and protection, and that would be the idea. Though when it comes to a presidential or even an ex-presidential type of security detail, they're always going to be there no matter what. So for them not to be there would be very unusual. It either represents the idea of not being protected or the idea of being in a place like the upper room, like in a place of family. Like I imagine in the residence, if they go in there and they're there with their family and they can say, hey, can you guys step out? And then the guys are outside the doors. They're there. They're just not seen. So in an outdoor event, again, can't imagine a time that they wouldn't be there. There isn't a time that they wouldn't be there. But yes, we're taking kids' dreams, by the way. I just saw that. Sorry. But the idea of being in a place that's more unified, being in a place where a threat matrix would be a lot lower. But the mist is like off in the distance. It's interesting because when you said, I hear a lady singing, the first thing I heard was the fat lady sings. Now, Melania is not the fat lady. She's anything but. She's more akin to the lady in, what's that show about the circus, that musical?
Oh, wow.
You know, that's what I thought of, is that lady that sings, the redhead that gets on stage and just absolutely blows it out of the water.
Going on.
You know what I'm talking about?
If you need to boot me out, if that helps, that would be fine. You could finish.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Well, I'm just going to finish without her. There was something that was happening, and Apparently she couldn't hear me. But yeah, Greatest Showman. That lady in The Greatest Showman that gets up and just belts out this incredible song that leaves like everybody, especially the guy, I forget his name anyway, Hugh Jackman, leaves them in tears, and it's just absolutely stunning in the way that she gives her vocal and even her presence, her gown, like everything, the whole presentation of who she is just absolutely stunning. There's multiple dreams that we've had where Melania is announcing the return of Donald Trump. And it's the idea of a role that she plays as somebody that is announcing a shift in the atmosphere. And I believe that she carries that weight in the spirit, that when she walks into a room, the atmosphere shifts. I happen to know, because of certain close friends of mine, that she was the one that insisted before we move into the White House, it needs to be cleansed. It needs to be prayed through. They need to anoint the doorways. So the story goes, they found a closet. They're walking through, some spiritual prophetic people, I would imagine. And there's this whole closet full of like 100 pillows, and they just kind of prayed over the whole thing. And Trump said, no, do it right. And they had to actually pull out every pillow and touch every pillow and pray over every pillow. But the whole idea of, anointing the doors and all of that was Melania that wanted that done, insisted, by what I've heard, that would be done before they moved in. So she does. She represents the bride. She represents definitely a level of a spiritual side. I also know from my pastor that when he was at the cathedral, I think it might have been for the inauguration. I'm not sure what it was, but it was a big event. He was asked to say the Lord's Prayer, and he said the Lord's Prayer, and it shows on the screen that Melania was just weeping as everybody said the Lord's Prayer together. And then there was an event that came shortly after that where Melania actually opened the meeting or whatever. She was speaking first, I believe, introducing her husband, and she said the Lord's Prayer. So again, the idea, what I was just talking about was stuff that actually happened in this dream. Melania is the one singing. The idea of singing is the idea of releasing a sound, a breakthrough, a frequency in the air, a change or a shift, a season, things like that. And so I believe that she has that authority and that power. From what I've heard, I don't know her personally, but what I've heard of stories of people that have been close to her, and things like the sharing of the Lord's Prayer. And also she represents a very, very dear, close, intimate spiritual side of the president and of the first family. And so, again, the mist is important because the mist represents distance or represents a fuzziness, not a clarity of seeing what lies ahead. And I believe what God is showing is the plans of heaven. I'm just going to tell it like it is. I believe it's the plans of heaven. I believe what God is saying is, this is what I want to see happen. This is what I want to see moving forward, is the idea of a restoration of competent leadership into the country, and what that looks like, and the announcement of it with a bride that is together in unity, standing by her husband, and coming together as literally a first family to move things forward in an environment and in a place of safety where there's no need for weapons and guards and violence of any kind. So it's kind of a simple dream, but it's also a very profound dream. The key symbols would be probably Melania, the mist, and the idea of a lack of protection or no need for protection. So I believe the actionable intelligence in this dream is there is a time coming, or there is a time that is set forth to come, meaning it's on the heart of God, where leadership in agreement will be restored to this country. It'll be a place of much less division, much less violence on the streets and in other places, much less people trying to take away jobs and fire other people. And like, we're in a state of all-out warfare in this country right now, whether you would know it or not, whether we would have it or not. It's not warfare like the Civil War. We're not fighting each other with guns, but it's psychological, ideological, financial, government, economic warfare, and it's happening every single day in every part of America. So if you don't know that, you're a casualty already. If you know that, you can suit up and you can put your armor on, you can stand firm at minimum, or you can become part of the remnant that actually charges forward and takes back ground. So what this is saying is through the mist, which the mist represents, there's the word, the fog of war. The mist represents coming out of, say, the swamp, right? The mist in the swamp. There's, again, multiple dreams we've had about a mist or coming off the swamp, cloudiness, a fogginess, foggy bottom. These are all symbols that we've seen in dreams related to these same people, related to this same topic. This one is kind of a coming through, a breakthrough on the other side. The division and the warfare has subsided. There's not a need for armed protection as much, to the point that they may be there, but they may not be seen, and coming through that mist to hear the sound. And I believe it's a sound of wholeness and of purity and of beauty. And it represents a restoration of and a support of the leadership that God has planned for this country. So anyway, yeah, it could also be the glory. There's a lot there, but I don't want to camp on one dream. So let's go to Jamie.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? I don't know if I'm muted or not.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into this because it's not exactly long, but unfortunately, it's not exactly short. The reason I felt I should share the stream with you, John, is because of something that you had said in one of the previous videos that I was reviewing last night, going for the mentorship, and I felt compelled to tell you about this. So it's about the title of the stream is Bad Actor, and I'm going to reference a timestamp 132 on Abimelech's stream, just so you know, because you had said something about Bad Actor of the Day revolving around stopping wars, that sort of thing. So it started off in the back of a store, which was a mix between Walmart and a gas station. It's kind of hard to explain, but I was looking at a set of intimates in a gorgeous floral pattern I think I have seen before at Walmart. So I say to myself that these are cute, and then immediately a man next to me agrees. This guy's kind of tall, he's white, he's round, he has a full beard. He's definitely Southern. His wife and I both scold him for saying something, kind of weird. And then at some point, I feel that I need to go to the register to pay for this item. I'm not sure why I didn't. Sometimes I forget certain parts of my dreams, but I think that's what happened with that one. But I think that my sister had something to do with it, but I end up heading farther back to where it would normally be like an employees only area. But this area actually is more of it kind of leads into a cloth door. That one's also a little bit weird to explain as well. But what I see as I come out of it is like a tiny flea market bazaar setup. But if you can think dystopian, mix those two. I look to my right at a couple of earrings that play music. They are in a smudged glass display case, and one of them is kind of a lightning shaped and plays super fast rock and roll, which normally I love rock and roll, but that was very noisy. Did not like it at all. The other one is more of a music box. It's like an antique heart. So after that, I kind of put them down, and then I passed by an interesting seller. I didn't really look at what he was selling because he was so mesmerizing. He kind of had a chocolate complexion, but he was dressed like a modern hipster. He had a full beard with kind of curled mustache, and then his hair back in a ponytail, and then kind of loose garments on him. And this is what I reference whenever I say bad actor, because at first I didn't think about it, but he seemed very disingenuous. And he seemed like a terrible person, to be honest. I could tell that he wasn't really interested in me in so much as what I could do for him. And I end up, saying my goodbyes like, see you later. I'm not really interested, but you have a nice day. Okay. So the next part is that I see my sister. She's younger than me, a year younger. She is over talking to this girl. She looks like a biker chick. She's got kind of a half shaved, half laying over haircut. And they're talking. I don't remember what it was about, but I remember that I go over to kind of, say hi. And my sister was acting pretty strangely happy, which I didn't really mind until I almost fell on the pavement. And she thought it was funny, and she ended up pinning me to the fence with a long pole, I guess is her way of playing. And I was kind of awkwardly laughing, just asking her to put me down because I was up against a chain link fence, and below me was quite a few feet before the ground. So I was kind of scared, and she ended up putting me down. But the biker woman tells me that I'd better be careful. It looks like I'm about to die with the way that I've just been barely making it through. And then this ends up chilling me. So I try to act like nothing's wrong and walk out, but I run straight through where I had come from, which, before was the store, but now it has changed into a abandoned church. And there is metal in this church. It's not like a normal like wood finishing and stuff. It's all completely metal. And I run out into the fields that are below it. And as I'm running, I kind of get the sense that something is after me, something is, watching me. And I run to one of these cropped out squares of the fields. The rest of it was unkempt, overgrown, but every so often you'd see one of these with some people in it that looked like they were camping. And the one that I went to had a couple ramshackle tents and some people who were looking pretty depressed. There was a lady that was laying up against one of the tents that told me, excuse me, that that they were coming. I'm not really sure who she was referencing to at first, until I see a couple of people who looked kind of like that biker chick before, but they had superhuman speed and they ran around one of the squares, and they were definitely after me, but it was like they couldn't come into the square. So whenever they got around to my side, they were too quick for me to get away. So I tried to pick up the nearest item, which was a baseball bat, to defend myself. And they had marks on their hands. I don't remember what they were. I just remember being scared. And whenever I tried to hit them to get them away from me, because they seemed like they were bloodthirsty, whenever I tried to get them away from me, the bat passed right through them. But I knew that they could still hurt me. So I try to run away and go as far as I can. And I'm able to fly in dreams. So I try to do that. And that's the last thing I remember of that part. And then the last thing I have to say is that it cuts back to that one interesting seller that I mentioned before. It's in kind of like cinematic view, but he is working on some of the items in his shop before he takes off his glasses and is like cleaning them. And then he looks up at me, and there is like a fiery gold in his eyes, and it's just swirling. And I can see the very last shot that I see is of his arm. There is a tattoo on his arm that I don't know if you ever watched Harry Potter, but it's got J.K. Rowling's Death Eaters symbol on that. And that is all. Sorry for the long dream.
Wow. Yeah. Last dream I had that somebody shared one of these with me was Dana Coverstone. It took 32 days to interpret.
Oh boy. Well, I have bad news for you, because that's like one of the shortest dreams that I've got. So.
Which is why we need to teach you dream interpretation, because if you do a dream lab, this would minimum be 6 hours worth of work.
Okay.
Every one of these symbols is important.
Mhm.
I want to leave you with some encouragement. However, one is God is speaking to you very, very clearly, and He's very chatty about what He wants to speak about. So the
Definitely
fact
is
that
the chatty part. Yeah.
the fact that you remembered all this, that you could write all of this down, is just amazing. He's speaking to you in very, very great detail, which means he's telling you about things, I believe, that are relevant in our lives right now, and also maybe about what's going to come into the future. One of the ways that we could begin to unpack the enormity of a dream this big is to just look at starting with the different settings. If you're starting in the back of a store represents a marketplace. It's a mix between a Walmart and a gas station, right? And you were looking at a set of intimates, a floral pattern. Okay, that just that line right there.
Yeah.
There's a whole
Yeah.
lot, because being in the back of the store represents that you're deep into the marketplace. It's a Walmart-esque place, which means it's a huge gathering place. It's a superstore. It's not a little shop. It's not probably represents a bigger city. It also has a gas station. It represents a Walmart is like a store is like a marketplace of its own. It's like a mini mall, because they have all the stores up front. They have a bank, and they have the obstetrician, and then they have a pharmacy, and then they have the deli, and they have literally all of these like mini stores within the store. So it represents a branded marketplace of its own. You're looking at a set of intimates, right? Which is talking about either something that nobody's going to see, or something that a party of one is going to see. And it's a gorgeous floral pattern. There's so much that we could go into there. It reminds me of Song of Solomon 2 verse 2, arise my darling, sleepwear, right? Something that you would wear to bed with somebody you were intimate with.
That's something that I just recently studied. So.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's interesting. But, arise my darling, my beautiful one, and come along. Behold, the winter's past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers have appeared in the land. The time of singing has come. So that's the whole idea of the floral pattern, related to intimacy, related to scripture, related to the bride and the bridegroom, related to a place of rest. And, that's what we get with floral pattern, those two words. So, yeah, I unfortunately, we can't go through all of this, but I do want to hit a few highlights. The cloth door.
Yes.
You mentioned a cloth door.
I think it was a red color, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So to me, that represents a torn veil. And it's interesting that you said it was red, because the first thing that I think of is the curtain between the holy place and the Holy of Holies in the temple that was rent from, I think, from bottom to top when Jesus actually died on the cross. So it's the idea of having access that, and of course it's red. So representing the blood of Jesus, which was what paid the price for the access. We typically don't think of a cloth door as being a very secure way, because we know how we could just put a knife in it and it's like a tent.
It was torn. Yes.
Oh, it was.
Yes, it was.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's even more interesting.
Yeah. I would also like to add, since we can't do any interpretations, which is perfectly fine with me, I just felt like sharing. But these, all of my dreams, I've only had these dreams since I was 6, and I've never had any others. Like, I've never had a new dream. Sometimes the characters change, but that's it. And even if I think I'm making new choices in the dreams, I'm not. As well as, excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry about that. It's been a struggle getting to you today in general, but that, as well as almost all of my dreams end up being like nightmarish in some way. So whenever I found like this program that you're doing, I feel like this is probably where I'm supposed to be, but I just wanted to let you know that. I don't know if that does anything for the rest of the dream or not, but
Well, I found it interesting what you just said before. Thank you for that, by the way. But what you said before that is you said you never have any other dreams. And so are these like a recurring dream or like a recurring theme in a dream, or what does that look like?
no, it's so it's recurring dreams, and I'll re-explain it. So I haven't had any new dreams since I was 6 years old. And the reason that I remember that is just because I know that whenever I was 5, I can remember having a different dream whenever I was 5, and that just being, just a dream. It comes and goes. I've recurring dreams, some 20 to 50-ish dreams are what I have. It's enough. They're all complex like that, or like more like triple or quadruple the amount of complexity. So I'm never bored, but as far as they go in general, I remember feeling like I did not want to have them anymore, because some of them are just brutal. I mean, and I'll share with you in the mentorship, but they get pretty rough.
That's fascinating. I've never ever heard anybody say I haven't had any different dreams since I was 6.
And they're very colorful, very vivid, but a lot of them are lucid too. Usually I'll go through spells where most of my dreams are lucid. But yeah, just as far as dreaming goes in general, no new dreams since I was 6, but sometimes the characters change. So
that is, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
What I do want to tell you though is recurring dreams. There's 3 types. The way that I teach it is there's 3 types of ways that God turns up the volume. 1 is nightmares, 2 is recurring dreams, and 3 is vivid dreams. You mentioned all 3. So it's almost like, I don't feel like God shouts. Well, he does. He's a dad, so of course he does, right? But I feel like what he's telling you is important, and he's saying it loudly. He's turning up the volume in 3 ways, which is super fascinating, because if he's talking about, because you said something in here about a dystopian future.
I have a lot of those sorts of themes. Yeah, a lot of dystopian, a lot of like ancient mixed with modern. A lot of one time I dreamed about the city of gold, descending down, and that was before I even came to be a Christian. Like I said, these are dreams that I've been having since I was 6 years old. And what other themes? There's quite a few, but I don't have simple dreams. And usually they have like so many different themes in them that it's hard for me to even remember to write them down. So I have to do it as soon as I wake up.
Well, it's interesting because the bad actor in this dream was somebody akin to a Death Eater, and so there's the idea of something nefarious. That symbol represents that God is exposing a plan or a plot of the enemy. He's exposing something, and even the idea of a dystopian future is kind of like a disassociated, out of order, disconnected sort of future. And I believe what God is sharing with you is the plans of the enemy. What's super fascinating is if he's sharing this with you now, there is a level of assumption that can be made, and it's not really an assumption, it's something I'm sensing by the Spirit. But it's the idea that therefore now or in the future or in the soon future, because our country is looking, the whole world is looking more and more dystopian right now as we're in.
Felt like future. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting if he was talking to you about the same stuff when you were 6. What that means is these are destiny dreams, is your whole life and all of the vast majority, 20 to 50 of the conversations that you are having with God, because you said 20 to 50 dreams, have continued on throughout your life. And God is preparing you for something that he's preparing in your spirit, and he's doing it with the volume on high. So these dreams are important. I believe these dreams are preparatory. One of the ways that I give an example is like if what's the difference between a prince and a pauper? A prince is told his entire life, these are your people. This is your palace. You have to have the wisdom to be able to govern and to feed these people and to withstand the attacks of the enemy and to build alliances. And a pauper is like, nobody's for me. If I'm going to get anything, if I'm going to eat today, it's up to me, and they go steal an apple. They're two men of the same, or two boys or whatever, or girls of the same age with two completely different mindsets. So what if God has for you to step into a role in a future that you can't imagine at the beginning, and in a role that you don't think you qualify for? Well, what would he do? Well, he would begin to prepare you. And so it's the idea that a lot of billionaires or multi-millionaires have dreamt about their success for years. Now they think about it in their minds, but a lot of times they have dreams about massive companies and this and this and this. And you even think of Joseph in the Bible, how he dreamt about the sun, the moon, and the stars bowing down to him, and the sheaves of wheat of his brother bowing down to him. And it was the whole idea of, as a 17-year-old, being in charge of everything that he knew in his known world, which had to do with his brothers, but everything outside of the known world, but in his observable world, which was the sun and the moon and the stars, and he couldn't even begin to fathom what that meant. So I'm telling you, God is speaking to you about identity, about destiny. He's talking to you very vividly and very loudly. These are dreams that need to be unpacked. They're very important for you. Unfortunately, they're not something we could unpack even in a dream lab in person, or online in such a way that would what I'd have to do, and I've thought about doing this, and I may do this soon at some point, is instead of doing a live dream interpretation, pick somebody that has a dream like this and just get on and talk for an hour or 2 hours about one dream and unpack the whole thing. I don't know if anybody else would find that interesting. I would. But
as far as that goes, I think that would be really cool. But maybe instead of doing 2-hour sessions, what you could do is start with the first hour doing somebody who has, maybe a longer dream and talk for an hour. And then the second part of the session, take people coming in and do it that way. Because I feel like these short dreams are just as important as the long ones are.
Yeah, they are. I agree. Yeah. Wow. Well, that's fascinating. I know that you sent this to me because I remember reading it. And so that's something that, given a little bit more time, I can kind of go through a few more of the symbols. But one of the things that we're going to teach you in Sim 1 is what I call the Joseph method, which is how the first thing you have to do is identify every key symbol. And there's probably 100, maybe 200 in this dream. There's a lot.
No, I've got my work cut out for me, don't I?
Yeah. Well, just like the word
that's
intimate,
okay.
That's one. The word floral, that's another. That's just talking about one piece of clothing you're looking at, let alone Walmart and gas station and back of the store and guy next to me and this. And these are all their own symbol that then we hear from God and say, okay, what does the word of knowledge say? What is, and for floral, he brought up to me Song of Solomon 2. Which to me, he used that verse to say dreams are the love language of God to his kids. But it's also the idea of waking up of the beloved. Arise, my darling, my beautiful one. And so there's so much context in what God is saying in just the word floral that if we go fast and we kind of hit the highlights, you miss so many of the intricacies. He is speaking to you in an intricate language. It's very it's unique to you. I'm not going to say it's unusual because I have complex dreams sometimes, pages and pages of stuff. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people, they get fragments, they get quick pieces. Those serve this kind of environment easy because we can get through multiple ones quickly. But I just want to celebrate the way that God speaks to you, Jamie, because I think it's special. I think it's unique. I think he's speaking clearly. I think he's talking to you kindly as his beloved. He's wanting to wake you up to certain things that are identity and destiny related, and it's important. In fact, some of the most important things that you may do in your life is to be able to interpret these dreams in preparation for what he has for you and what's coming in the future.
Wow,
so we get into when we get into Sim 2. We have.
I'll be there. Trust me. I will be there if you let me.
Sim 2 is really interesting because You go through the dreams through the Bible, and then Sim 1 and then Sim 2. And when you get to Sim 2, we have people develop a dossier for themselves. So what are the top main dreams? Maybe it's 10 or 20 dreams. And we also include in there, potentially, if they've had them, prophetic words. And we interpret them in light of each other. Like you could interpret this dream in light of 5 other dreams that you've had that may be related to Walmart, a Death Eater, a guy on a motorcycle, or any other things where you're like, man, this dream feels kind of like this dream, which feels kind of like this dream. And then when you interpret that body of work, now it takes a massive amount of time. I think that's one thing that I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was saying, I don't think I emphasize this enough, because when we get on here and we do dream interpretation, it's like, here's the quick answer. But like when I did the Dana Coverstone dreams, he did a 15-minute video. It took me 32 days full time to unpack it. It was a 38-page dossier.
Wow.
And he shared 3 short dreams. He didn't share as long as you did. 38 pages, 32 days. And so the live dream interpretation, we're just like, well, give me the quick answer. And sometimes God doesn't want to give us a quick answer. One of the things that we got out of that dream series is the fact that the 2020 election was going to be decided by a vote in the House of Representatives. We got that in July of last year.
Wow.
Nobody was talking about that in July of last year. January 6th, January 7th, whenever they actually voted, that's exactly what happened. And God was comparing it to the election of 1800. But that's the kind of intelligence 6 months out that when I was sharing this to some people, they would just, we've never heard any of this. This isn't, how did you get this? And we have the whole process because I wanted to share my work. This is what this symbol means. This is what. Now, there were other stuff that I saw that I think were plans of the enemy that didn't happen in reality the way that I saw. Now, they may represent people behind the scenes, but that's not what I saw. I saw them as people being on the forefront in various roles that didn't happen the way that I saw. But, and I believe that could have been the plans of the enemy were exposed, people prayed, and the plans of the enemy were changed, and he had to pivot. But there were major parts of that I'm not going to go into that were just incredible. So I want to tell you that a lot of these kind of dreams, even like story or movie-esque like dreams, can be dreams of vital importance for you, but they can also be dreams of national level importance. So it's good that you're digging in. And that's what I encourage people to do is press in, take the time, take the process. You may work 4 hours on it and get through half of the symbols of a quarter of the dream. Take a break, go to sleep, come back the next day, like dig in. It's taken me multiple days and weeks to do some of the dream interpretations where I say, hey, here's the dream and here's what we got. And a lot of those don't come easy, but it's worth it. And it provides a different level of intimacy with God. And as you begin to unpack it and stuff begins to pop and it blows up and you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And then you research things historically, or this relates to that or whatever. That's when you just get this passion in you because you know that God is really speaking to me and this is supernatural.
I really felt that passion whenever I first started watching you, because it was something that I'd never heard of before. But these dreams really have been just at the forefront of my mind for so long. So
well, thank you for sharing that. And
thank you. I appreciate being able to talk to you. I just felt like I really needed to share that with you. Another level, I know I'm cutting into other people's time, but I just wanted to let you know that another level of that bad actor that we had talked about before, that symbol in the dream. So the person who was the bad actor, the quote unquote bad actor, he actually, I'm pretty sure, starred as a villain in one film, but I cannot for the life of me find him. So I don't know, but I just remember, like, I feel it in my bones that I've seen him on a movie before. So
was he the guy
that was
Harry
another.
without the nose?
No. That man was, I'm pretty sure, English, if I'm not mistaken. This guy was definitely not. He had like a very clear, like a chocolate complexion. I felt like he was American, but his descent, I have no clue. So, and he didn't have like curly hair or anything like that. It was completely straight, obviously, except for his beard. But, yeah. So
Ask God to tell you, and He'll tell you. And when He reminds you of the movie, go watch the movie again.
Okay. All right. I can do that. Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks
Thank
for sharing.
you so much.
Appreciate it. All right, Karen. I can't hear you. You're unmuted, but I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I don't know what's happening. We'll come back to you. Can you hear me? I can't hear anything you're saying. Let me come back to you. Try to get that figured out. I'm not sure what's up there. Chris.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
Here, let me get here a little bit more on the camera. So John, I've been working diligently on my dossier. So this is the only reason I haven't looked at this dream before, but my husband asked if I would bring his dream forward, if I could get in the room. So I'm going to share his dream. And this is one that he had on September 25th, which was the same day as the last 45 dream. So I'll just read it. There were 3 rooms, and just to start, and hopefully you can see this, this is how the rooms were configured, and there was an open wall in front of each room. There are 3 rooms, and I'm standing in the 3rd room. I stay in the 3rd room the entire time. All the rooms.
Where's the 3rd room? Point it out.
So this is, can you see the numbers?
No. Okay. 1, 2, and 3. There it is. Hold on. Let me hold it up again.
It almost looks like the top of a cross.
Okay. So you're on the right side.
Right. Standing in number 3.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Says, so I can see into all 3 rooms at the same time through the missing wall. There was a band playing in each of the 3 rooms. The furthest room straight ahead had 45 in it, wearing a suit and tie. He was first sitting and playing the keyboard. Then he was playing the drums. It was really dark in the 2nd room, so I couldn't see in it, but I knew 45 was playing in the band in that room too. I'm standing in the 3rd room and watching everything, and I could sense 45 was also in the 3rd room playing in the band. The music was playing in all 3 rooms. I then saw Mick Jagger standing in the 3rd room where he was talking and laughing, and the room was packed and full of people standing. End of dream.
Really interesting. What's the first Mick Jagger song that comes to mind?
I can't get no satisfaction.
Okay. I love it when God does this, when he includes pop culture and in particular singers and rock bands and dreams. I've had Pat Benatar and U2 and all of these things. And a lot of times God will just immediately quicken a song that they sing to mind. And I felt like I should ask you. So the difference between the 3 rooms, 45 is in all of them. 45 is playing something. And the first one is just a keyboard, right?
Keyboard, and then he switches to the drums.
Keyboard and the drums. So he's kind of playing by himself, right?
Right.
And then the second one, he's with a band.
Yeah, he's with the band. And then in the 3rd one, he can't really, again, this is my husband's dream. So in the 2nd room, he can't, it's so dark he can't see, but he knows in his mind that President Trump was playing in the band in that room too. And then in the 3rd room, he also knows that the president is playing in that band too. So the president's playing in 3 bands. He's playing in each room. But in the 1st room, he can see him playing the keyboards. And then from the keyboards, the president switches to playing the drums.
Mm. And then it's dark in the 2nd room. What about the 3rd room?
He didn't talk about the light or the dark. And I asked him about that. And he says, I don't really know.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. People, it's interesting. People in the comments are even getting what I'm getting. Progression dream concerning Trump, the comeback kid. So it's interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen the cartoons where they did about how Trump plays the media, and it has the picture of Maestro in Bugs Bunny, where he's like, no,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and
Totally get that.
right, and so, but I also see who is it, Linus in Snoopy, who just sits there with his head down and just plays the piano, and so I felt like that was kind of the grind. Playing the piano was setting the tune. Excuse me. Setting the music, getting the notes out there, the song out there, releasing the sound. The second part is when he goes to drums. When I hear drums of war.
Ah.
So it's from setting the tone with, here's what we want to do. We want to get jobs back from China. We want to. I always have to say it like that.
That's great.
But where we want to, it's the idea of we want to get, we want to build up the economy. We want to do this. We want to do that. It's just basically a domestic agenda with a little bit of a foreign agenda. And this is what he would want to accomplish. But then there's the idea of the massive war of the media and the crazy left doing everything they can to block everything that he does, to smear his name in every possible way ad nauseum. I don't even know how you can hate that much. I would get tired after a while of wanting to destroy someone's life and probably just quit, but they don't. They just continue because it's demonically fueled. But so it's the idea that he started to set the tone of the country and to play the music, but that would dominate what would be the frequency of our time. And instead, though he didn't choose it, he was sent to go to war. That's what the idea of that's the first act. So the second act is a dark time. He's still got a band, and what I heard was Band of Brothers. If you know the reference to Band of Brothers, there's actually, I think it was an HBO or a Showtime show called Band of Brothers. It was about Charlie Company in World War II and about, a group that was taking ground in Europe and the close-knit closeness of this squad of World War II fighters who were, American soldiers who, went through all kinds of things as they traveled through towns and villages across Europe looking to push the Nazis back to Berlin and free the world, basically. So that's what I hear is Band of Brothers in a dark time. So he can't see the band, but he knows that Trump is still playing.
Right.
So what's interesting to me is it represents the continuity, and you only get this stuff in dreams, because there's stuff that people say that I get frustrated with people saying that nobody seems to be able to verify, and so I want to just disregard it. But then God shows us stuff in dreams. It's the idea of continuity of music and continuity of government. The idea, even though you can't see, he's still in the band, he's still playing the music. So there's a lot of people that are saying, well, Trump is still in charge now. This is happening, that's happening, blah, blah, blah. There's not a lot of way to verify that unless you're, even if you were close. I don't know that you could verify it in such a sense that it would be believable. But what I feel like God is saying is the band marches on. And even though you can't see what's happening behind the scenes, there are things that are going on that I believe will be exposed soon. And then the third, what was different in the third setting with the band?
He puts here, I'm standing in the third room and watching everything. I could sense President Trump was also in the third room playing in the band. The music was playing in all three rooms. I then saw Mick Jagger. That's the differentiator, I think. He sees Mick Jagger in the third room laughing and talking, and the room is packed and full of people standing.
Okay, so to me, that represents like a rally. So it went from him playing by himself, initially setting the tone, then going to war, to a dark time where things are happening and it's hard to really see who's playing, but we're still hearing the music, to the idea of now Mick Jagger's in the room. It's a full-on party. The room is packed full of people. And it's almost like a time of rejoicing. And again, the whole idea of I can't get no satisfaction. It's the idea that, and I get this prophetically. Again, I've never met the man. I don't know the man personally. I believe Trump to be the kind of guy that if he didn't run again right now, it would never sit right with him. He didn't
Yeah.
finish what he started to finish. He hasn't gotten the satisfaction of things like draining the swamp, restoring the republic, bringing freedom back to America. He's talked a good game about a lot of these ideas. And please understand, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him at all. I'm just saying he hasn't accomplished what he said, period.
Right.
That's just a fact. He
Right.
would probably agree, I would think. So it's the whole idea that he's not done, that the work is not complete, and that the band plays on. But also the idea of band of brothers, which means a remnant or a group of people that are working in a dark time. I believe we're in scene 2, moving, Lord willing, into scene 3 soon. But scene 3 is when the lights come on, when there's all of the exposure, and really what you're talking about is the party that happens afterwards.
Amen.
Now, this is another dream. I don't say these things lightly. Some people don't like it when I say them, and that's okay, because God gave the dreams, not me.
Right.
But there's a series of dreams, and we're going to put together a dossier on Trump dreams in particular that all indicate the idea of Trump coming back, of a restoration of a Trumpian-esque presidency, of leadership, either Trump or somebody of the grain of Trump coming back and restoring, and for him to be the same person in all 3 rooms, I believe represents him having a hand in whatever's coming next. And I believe that may come sooner than the next election. Now, again, I don't get my information from other sources. I get my information from, this is what the dream would indicate. We are now in a dark time. It's hard to see who's pulling the strings, who's playing the stuff behind the scenes, and what's really happening. But we're starting to see pieces of light coming through that could represent a battle that's greater than we know of, where victories are being won one at a time in the darkness.
Oh, that's
But
great.
the party's coming.
I can't wait.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you,
thanks for
John.
sharing. What a great
Thank you,
dream.
John. I'm going to replay this for my husband later so he can hear all this. Thank you so much.
Awesome. You
All
got
right.
it. All right, Regina. You're
There.
muted.
Hi,
There you
guys.
Hi there.
I'm going to make this one short. I've got one that I think you'd like better, but maybe next time.
Okay.
I saw a warrior with a sword, and there was a giant June bug on its side. It was twice the size of the warrior. The bug would turn to the right side up, and the warrior was underneath it. He seemed to be trying to stick the soft part of the underbelly of the bug, but he was not tall enough to do major damage, and the bug would just turn back on its side and turn right side back up with the warrior under him. And I thought the actional intel was the intercessors use the word on the enemy. Though he looks large and your weapon seems small, he'll turn to his side and keep coming back for more. His legs will eventually grow weak and you'll defeat him.
I like that. Yeah, it's the idea of a large, almost a Goliath-like, relentless enemy. But I thought of, what is it? I thought immediately of A Bug's Life, that Disney thing. I was thinking about that when you were talking about the size, that he was double the size of the warrior. It's like, wow, that's an incredible bug. And of course, I'm not going to say nobody likes bugs. A lot of people don't like bugs because they represent vermin and disease and things like that. So, yeah, I like your interpretation. The idea that coming back, but still continuing to hold the sword. And I think the strategy is, if you can't reach the underbelly, is chop away at the legs, which is exactly what you were saying. Eventually the legs give out, and then the warrior is able to slay the dragon-esque bug.
And it's kind of stand firm, stay where you're put, and keep fighting.
Keep fighting, keep swinging. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Gina.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take care. All right, let's get, man, you guys have been waiting for such a long time. Let's get Robin.
Hi there.
Hi, Robin.
So this is short, half a page. Let me preface it with I've had dreams for a couple of years of me being on a college campus. It's just chaos. Nothing ever works. It's just a mess. So anyway, here's this. I think God's giving me a dream and maybe tying a bow on it, like what all those dreams have meant. So I'm at a university, and I taught for 20 years statistics. So I'm teaching stats. It's the beginning of a new quarter, and I've just found out that I'm going to teach this class, and it's the first day of class. So I walk in the room, and there's an overhead projector. So normally I would go up to the front, and I would do PowerPoint and all that. But so I walk in this room. It's like old fashioned. There's an overhead projector, you know, where you stand in the middle of the room and you turn the light on, you put the piece of paper on it. So it's old fashioned. And they're like these acetate sheets. And so I wrote, I feel ill repaired, just told the day before I'd be teaching. So I'm using a lecture, just a lecture that I had. And it's grad students. And I'm thinking, you know, man, I got to get organized before the next class, because like I didn't even know I was going to be teaching, and here's this whole quarter ahead of me. In my mind, I'm thinking I can do better. So, I mean, even in the midst of this kind of like old-fashioned way to teach, I could now at least print from my computer a heavier acetate, like instead of taking it, going to where we used to have to run it through a machine, really old fashioned, that I could take it one level higher. And that's the end of the dream. So then, and I don't remember dreams. So I woke up this morning, I remembered the dream, and I immediately thought, well, that's really weird, because I use PowerPoint now. Everything's PowerPoint up at the front of the room with technology. Do you want me to tell you what I got from it, unpack it, or do you want to just take it and run?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, I had the dream last night after midnight, so it's literally October 1st, and it's the beginning of a new quarter, figuratively and literally.
Nice.
Then I'm using an overhead projector, but even if I went one step better, it still was going to be an overhead projector, even though the overheads would be a little bit better. So let me go down to my...
So the idea of an overhead projector is the idea of literally something that's over their heads.
So right? Here's what I got. So it's the first quarter. And then God said the overhead projector is a play on words for me. Like, I'm the projector. And what some of the things I'm going to start, and I think it has to do with Sim too. Like it's like another layer of, I'm not going to be on a college campus ever again. I'm going to be doing things a different way. So right now things are kind of over my head. You know, I'm going to be learning so much. But also what's really cool is I'm the projector, and I'm going to begin to project, things that right now might be overhead, but an overhead projector uses light. So I'm going to get information, and it's going to go from here. Where's me? I always lose my hands. And it's going to be projected up on a screen and enlarged using light. That's how an overhead projector works.
Wow. Okay.
Because I keep asking him about like my destiny, because, you know, I've been told I'm a new prophet and evangelist, and I kind of thought I was going to be on the mission field on a yacht going to all these little islands. Now, some of that's not mutually exclusive though, sure. But it's like stepping stones. And actually maybe that vision ties in to this as well. It's like he keeps showing me, I've been told I'm going to step from island to island, and God's going to give me nations.
That's interesting. When you first started and you said statistics, I heard, which is a very, very famous book, How to Lie with Statistics.
Yeah. That's
what I heard. And I feel what God is saying is you taught stats before, now you're going to teach facts.
Interesting.
And overhead projector is a play on words, but it's a double play on words in that what you're going to project is going to be projected over the heads of other people, which is how God talks with dreams. But it's also the idea of dreams are literally over our heads, meaning they're heavenly knowledge coming down to us as a download. So they're projected, and I've compared the dream world to like being in a movie theater. And I've said particularly about the enemy, when people are like, well, demonic dreams, this, and I'm like, nah, the enemy doesn't have the key to the projector room. So what's happening is God is projecting the image that he wants you to see in your mind while you sleep. So the idea of overhead projector, that's the medium that you're using to be able to teach. Now, you've taught stats before, so it's not that you don't know how to teach or that you can't teach at a graduate level. It's that it's a new season, and it's probably a new level of information, and you feel unprepared.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea of you're going back to school, but you're not going back to school just to be a learner. You're going back to school to learn, but also because what you're going to do is you're going to take the information and you're going to teach others. So I believe it's an identity and a destiny dream. Talks about where you've been, which I believe from what you're saying, that you're a great teacher, that you have a calling to be a teacher, among other things, but that you're going to be able to use the knowledge related to dreams and dreaming in particular, the overhead projecting, how God from overhead is projecting images on your brain that you see in the night hour while you sleep, and also you projecting those images so somebody else. It's what Paul said to Timothy, entrust to faithful men who entrust to other faithful men. It's what we're all about, and it's the whole idea of replication. You know,
very cool.
know that, you know, we never started what I'm doing here with the Spiritual Intelligence Mentorship and ultimately the Spiritual Intelligence Group to be just a training company. It's to be able to train people that we can create an army of analysts that are able to decode in real time what God is saying in the earth. And so it's part of what we need to do that. We need other people than me teaching. We need future instructors. We need people that can replicate. We don't, you know, I don't want to sit behind my desk and teach forever. I'll do this for a season, but there's probably better people to teach this than me. But right now, with what God is showing me and the things that we're seeing, that's kind of I believe it's at the forefront of a lot of what's happening in what I believe is a new prophetic movement. Is it's deeper, it's more intense, it's actionable war plans, it's actionable business plans, it's things that take the prophetic to a whole different level that we've seen maybe in pieces. But imagine if there were 10,000 people, for lack of a better term, like me, that could understand the secret and the hidden, the deep, the decipher, the ciphered language of God in dreams, and could decode it to the world. That we could work with heads of state, and we could work with people, and and at the top of any mountain. It doesn't have to be government; it could be anything. But I feel like one of the things that God is saying to you, and if it resonates, great. If it doesn't, throw it out. But is that you're going to be part of the replication. You're going to be somebody that teaches, that entrusts to faithful men and women who entrust to others. And so what you have to do first is, it's a new quarter, a new season, get comfortable with the overhead projecting of what's coming at you, and then what you're going to share and regurgitate to others.
Oh, very cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Right after I did this, I got kind of a download for you. It's like 7 phrases. Do you want to do it some other time, like in Sim 2? Or you want me to just tell you the phrases?
Well, let me record them. But yeah, go ahead and tell the phrases, and we can probably revisit them later. I can't.
And a few of them you said in Sim 1. I think you said, Landon, Texas. Is that the right state? Landon, Texas, a compound. That might actually be a compound.
Okay.
I heard living in community. For some reason, I'm seeing trailer hookups and the potential. I feel like I'm supposed to say dream big. I don't know how big this property is, but the potential of maybe trailer hookups or for people that come for a while, like maybe tiny houses. And I heard a community kitchen.
Wow.
And then the other word I heard, which I don't know what it really means, but I keep hearing horses. Horses.
Oh, wow.
Does that mean anything?
Yeah, I used to work with horses. I would love horses. I would love to have a property. I live in Texas
Yeah.
with a big ranch, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 acres. I don't know, just a big ranch
Yeah.
where we had a community of people, whether it's tiny homes or farming or ranching or
Yeah.
trailer hookups. I have people that are friends of mine that live in RVs, and I've specifically said I'd love to have you guys be able to
Yeah.
come and stay on a property,
Yeah.
and then to have a big warehouse
Yeah.
like in the secret meetings room where there's an empty
Yeah.
warehouse where we go in and we work we all live within earshot of each other, maybe even like a little village with a big central table in the middle, and we can all
Yep.
eat together at this massive picnic table, and then we go into the warehouse and pull up the computer screens and who's having what,
Exactly.
and how do they connect. And I would love, that's a dream for
Yeah.
sure.
That's what I'm seeing, a large open room where we all go in, and there may be some tables and maybe sort of a little place for a group of 2 or 3, like a couple of teams. But then I'm looking up on a wall, and there's all these screens, almost like the dreams that have come in that day. And
Yep.
then I'm seeing, like places, either someone could bring their own tiny trailer, or maybe someone decides they want to come be there for a year or two commitment, and they put up a tiny house. So I just feel like, I don't know if it's something you already have or that you're going to buy, but God's going to provide, and dream big. You keep saying dream really big.
Wow. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, that's in line with a lot of the stuff that I feel like God is showing us.
Cool.
So, amen. Thank you.
Yeah. God bless.
All right. Well, let's, gosh, I know we're over time and I got to head out, but let me do one more. Betsy, I don't know that I've seen you in here before.
Hey, Don.
Hey there. How are
Have
you?
RV, will travel.
Have RV, will travel. By the way, let me just say something here real quick. If you don't know what we're talking about the spiritual intelligence mentorship, this is where you get the information. It's spiritualintel.com. We have all the information for all of our classes that are there. You can go and find out what it looks like. I don't want to go into it too much right now because we're in dream interpretation time. But if you're interested in learning more about what the Spiritual Intelligence Group does, the Spiritual Intelligence Mentorship, please go to spiritualintel.com, spiritualintel.com. Check it out and learn more. And if you have any questions, there's emails and stuff on. You can get in touch with us. All right, Betsy.
Okay, super quick. I had a dream. Big yellow school bus is sitting on the grass at my daughter Heidi's home. I think it's like in the side yard, just sitting there. In the backyard, there's a man laying on his back on her grass. She's kneeling next to him. She has a Bible raised over her head, and she thumps it down on him 3 times.
On who was it?
On a man.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. Oh, for some reason I thought it was her dad, but
Nope, just a man. Don't know who it was.
okay. So where were they?
So the man was lying on his back in her backyard on the grass.
And you don't know who the girl was, and you don't know who the man was.
The girl is my daughter Heidi.
Oh, your daughter Heidi. So you had this dream.
Yes.
How old's Heidi?
She's an adult. She has 3 children going on 4th coming up.
Okay. So there's a man laying on his back in her backyard. Is that her childhood home, like your house now?
It's her current home.
Her current home. A man laying on his back. Do you know anything about the man at all? Nothing? Or
Nope.
And she came out and hit him.
So she's kneeling beside him.
Okay.
She raises a Bible over her head and smacks him 3 times.
Where at?
Like on his chest.
Okay. Wow. That's really interesting. You started out with a bus.
Yeah.
School.
There was just a big yellow, one of the longer yellow buses sitting in her yard, not the same part of her yard, like off on a side yard, right on the grass.
Okay.
Looked like it was empty.
Interesting. Do you get the feeling that this guy was the bus driver or?
Possibly.
Okay. I feel like there's something missing. That was it. That was the whole dream, right?
That was it. It reminded me of a story I heard where a nun came to the site of an accident and hit someone with her Bible 3 times, and they revived. But that was just what came to mind.
Yeah, well, a lot of times what comes to mind is kind of how we hear in the word of knowledge. What I was hearing about the school bus is a group heading together to go to a place of learning, which could be, doesn't have to be typical school like we would think grade school or high school or college. It could be a Bible study in a church. It could be, any type of a ministry school, any type of a group of people moving in a direction together to learn something together. So it's interesting that they parked along the side of her house. So it doesn't sound like a car crash. It sounds like they intentionally pulled in at that place.
Mm-hmm.
Like where you would park an RV or something. A lot of people have, a side, whatever. So there's something along the side of their house that they can park there. And then, but nobody's in the bus.
Nobody's in the bus.
So you didn't see it.
It's interesting because she's planning to homeschool. She's always planned to homeschool. So having a bus in her yard is interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Really interesting. I hear dad, so I feel like the guy represents either her dad or her husband, either her dad or the dad of her kids. But I feel like part of what she wanted to do was, it's almost like, in cartoons or in like video games, you take something and you hit it against something, and then like on the third try, it transforms that character and it becomes something else. I think people do this on, what do you call it? Instagram reels or whatever, where they take a jacket and they throw it up against themselves. And on the third time, poof, they're suddenly wearing the jacket. So to me, the idea of the word was the idea of implanting the word into the heart of a person. I also felt, apparently somebody else did too, a couple other people did too, the idea of him being a bus driver. So I feel dad and I feel bus driver. And I feel it's the idea of that person getting on board with the idea of homeschooling and homeschooling in a godly manner. The idea of really getting, Bible thumper, that's interesting. Really getting the word implanted into that person. And I feel like she's kind of giving CPR to that person to have the word. And it's not literal. I believe it's like a spiritual CPR to get the word planted into him. And the other pieces are kind of periphery. But I do believe it is related to the children. It is related to the homeschooling. It is the idea of obviously the place where school buses park are usually at school, right? When they pull in and they park and the kids get out, or they have some sort of bus corral, I don't know, whatever they call it. But it's the idea that they've arrived. And so they've arrived and it's empty is the idea that somebody that drives the school bus is the person that makes the decision to take the bus there, or to say, this is the place of school. So that's just the setup. That's just the setup. And again, I feel like the guy represents the bus driver or the dad, her dad or the dad of her kids, and or both. But it's the idea of her wanting to, I almost see kind of like, I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but I see like Ruth in the Bible, where Ruth was kind of the one that laid at the feet of Boaz and said, put your covering over me. She kind of initiated that idea. And I feel, wow, somebody else felt that too. That's awesome. And it's the whole idea of your daughter is kind of the one initiating the idea of, hey, let's do this. And she's doing it 3 times, the confirmation of the word on the chest to get into the heart of the person that's lying on the grass. The person that's lying on the grass, I don't get the feeling that they're in distress, that they're, having a heart attack, or that they're, a casualty of some accident or whatever. I feel like they're just kind of relaxed, chilling. And she has obviously a sense of urgency to get her message across. And so she, bam, 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 3 times, like, we have to do this. We have to do this. We have to do this. And I feel like in the environment that's happening, particularly in schools today, this is something that she feels an adamacy in her spirit to teach her kids, for her kids to have, for her kids to have the word implanted in them. And in order for that to happen, she needs the husband, dad, bus driver, same all person together on board. That's what I'm feeling. I don't know how her husband or
So he was homeschooled himself, so he's totally on board. I don't
so
know
he's
where
totally on
her
board.
father is
Okay.
on that. Her kids
It's-
are only 4, 2, 1, and baby coming soon. So
Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, there's something about the word. Is she, and I don't mean this in any negative way, but I just want to ask, do you feel like she's like the spiritual head of the family, or no?
evenly, if not so.
Okay.
And she probably has been closer.
Sometimes, it's the wife dragging the husband to church, take me to church, and, that kind of a thing. And other times it's the husband that's like, okay, here's what we're going to do, and sets the tone and leads well spiritually. And, again, no judgment on anybody, but to me, it's the idea of there's something related to learning. And I feel like it's related to leading, which is this is why I get the feeling of the bus driver, that she feels an adamacy there that she wants to see. And it's almost like CPR. She wants to see revived in him. She wants to see a part of his heart brought back to life related to a heavy word-based background that also has to do, the word is also the sword. So it also has to do with being a warrior, defending the family, taking the fight to the enemy, being the guy. Proverbs 31 talks about the woman, but it also talks about the man. He is the man at the gates with the elders, right? Basically defending the gates. Being that kind of a person. And so I feel like there's something, and maybe to her it'll make more sense. I don't know. I'm not trying to judge anything that's going on in the family or the marriage or anything, but that's just what I feel, is that there's a real sense that she has an adamacy to literally pound the word into his chest, to wake him up / revive him to a deeper level of whatever it is that she's feeling needs to happen. And part of that, of course, because of the context of the dream, relates to how they raise the kids and what that looks like for the future generations.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Betsy. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We did 2 hours and 17 minutes. I can't go for another hour, which is probably what it would take to hit everybody. So I apologize to those that we didn't get to. We will be back, I believe, next Friday. Yes. I'm going to try to do this every single Friday. Might do some, if you haven't subscribed to Dream Life Decoded, do it, because I post some stuff in there. And sometimes we might do, if I'm, on a Tuesday night. Right now we're in between classes. We finished our last spiritual intelligence mentorship. The next one starts up October 18th. And so sometimes I want to get on and do things, because normally we're filming throughout the week in training in the spiritual intelligence mentorship, but minimum once a week. We're going to do some other interviews. We're probably going to unpack, like we talked about with Jamie, one dream at a time for a period of an hour. So if you like that kind of content, let me know. That's the kind of stuff that we want to be able to create. The other thing that I want to do is I want to go back through all the dream interpretation videos that we've done and separate out them dream by dream, so it can create kind of a bingeable learning center for you, where you can sit down and you can watch just one at a time. And if you only have 5 minutes, watch this 5-minute dream interpretation. You don't have to be captured for 2 hours, or sometimes we do these for 4 hours. And I know it's a lot, but if you can watch 5 minutes and then 10 minutes and then 15 minutes or whatever back to back. And by the way, if you want to be good at hearing the voice of God in dreams, practice. Write your own dreams out. Position yourself to hear from God in dreams and visions. Talk to your family, talk to your friends about dreams. Ask people to share their dreams. One of the best openers is tell me the worst nightmare you've ever had, because then you're immediately into the deep end and God will show you. And it'll be awesome. So continue to practice, continue to seek to hear the Lord, continue to write down what he gives you in the night hour. And I ask him probably every single night before I go to bed, I'll ask him a question and ask him to answer me in a dream. And sometimes he does, and sometimes he talks about what he wants to talk about, and that's great. But almost every night I get anywhere from 2 to 5 dreams, and I write them all down. So keep dreaming. Let me just pray as we go out, Father, that you would continue to bless this entire group, all of the SIM and the SIG group, as well as everybody that joins us for live dream interpretation, everybody that hears the sound of my voice, God, that you would just outpour your Spirit, as you said in Joel 2 and Acts 2, that part of an outpouring of the Holy Spirit is more dreams, more visions, Lord God, and that you would do that. The gift of prophecy, the word of knowledge, word of wisdom, Lord God, downloads from heaven, everything from music to art projects to business ideas, inventions, policy shifts, Lord God, ways to manage family, things to do in relationships, Lord. Every type of wisdom and knowledge that needs to be downloaded, that you would download it, and that you would give us the hunger and the ability to hear from heaven and to write down and to record what you are saying in this season, in this time, and even speak to us about what's going on in our country and tell us the truth of the world, God. Show us what's really happening, that we can know from you, the reliable source of intelligence, news, and information, what is going on, what we need to know, our identity, our destiny, who we are, and how we need to respond in light of the times we live in. Bless each and every person. Continue to pour out your presence, not only on them, but on their families and their friends. Create moments for divine dream conversations and give them more enlightenment and ability, Lord, to discern and to hear your voice in a clear way, to decode the secret language of God through dreams. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you guys for joining. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next week.